Okay, that's me. I'm Anton Rudgalvis from UK Trade and Investment. Quick show of hands, who's heard of UK Trade and Investment or who uses them? Oh, that's good. So hopefully after today a few more of you will want to use us and have contact with us. We're the government organisation that assists companies in the international marketplace. So we help people export their products or services. And it's important that we understand here that whether you have a product, whether you're a widget manufacturer or a service, or you're selling knowledge, help and advice is available through UKTI. As I said, we are a government organisation, but don't hold that against us just yet anyway, until after the presentation. As you'll see later, many of the people that you'll see and you'll deal with within the organisation have a business background. I'll tell you a little bit about myself in a moment. And the other thing I'd like to make clear before we start, please, is that we're not just talking about what I call big ticket companies. We deal with companies of all sizes. So whether it's a one-person company or a multinational company, help and advice is available for all people. So the message after today will be, you know, if you're looking to export, if you want some help and advice on international aspects, at least just call us and we'll do our best to help you. I actually work out of Bedfordshire. I'm one of a team of people in the eastern region in England, so unless you're based in that area, you typically may not be talking to me if you need some help and advice. But we're one of 9 regions in the UK. There are about 34 of us in the eastern region, and we are represented throughout the UK. So there are trade teams or international trade teams in all locations, and I'll tell you also as we go through just how easy it is to get in touch with us. My details are on this presentation. Is the presentation being shared with people? It is, okay. So you'll have my contact details, and as I said, even if you're not in the area that I cover and you need to contact me, please do, and I'll put you in touch with the right people in your own area. Global Reach and Local Insight. This presentation had a sort of a bricks and mint flavour, no pun intended. And also, if you want to think about acronyms, by goodness, we're going to see some in a moment from a government point of view. But what I talk about today is going to be eligible for all countries. So we're not limiting ourselves to these countries. So if you're looking to export or have help and advice in other countries outside of the bricks and the mints, we can help you. In fact, wherever there is government representation, i.e. an embassy or a high commission, or a consulate, there's a pretty good chance that we can help you. And I'm certain there are going to be the countries where you do plan or you'd like to export. As the slide says, we've got staff in over 100 overseas markets. When we talk about the overseas markets, these are embassies and consulates. Again, a quick show of hands, who's had contact with embassies in the past or spoken to people there? There is a huge misconception, I'm afraid, in the UK. People are not aware that they can have direct access to embassy personnel. Embassies are split pretty much in 2. There is a consular activity, passports, visas, getting drunken Brits out of jail in Spain, that kind of thing. That's not what we do. The other side is the commercial activity, where there are teams of commercial officers, many of who are sector specialists in a number of sectors, where you have direct access. There's no charge to speak to these people or to visit them when you go to a country. The only thing we would say is if you do plan to visit, please give them a little bit of advice and warning before you go. They do travel a lot themselves, so it makes sense to make sure that they're there. But in my past history, being a client of UKTI or Trade Partners UK as it was in those days for those people as old as I am, having access to local people who have, you know, cultural information, local market information, linguistic abilities in some cases, it's hugely helpful if you're thinking of either not just setting up in a country, but actually physically exporting to that country, and just being able to tap into these resources is really, really useful. It says here on the bottom that our advisors are overwhelmingly from the private sector. As per the introduction, I lived and worked in the Middle East for 4 years, run as general manager of a large reprographic company, and have engineering and packaging experience as well. So again, most of the people that you're likely to talk to will have a business background. And although we sometimes turn up in a stripy suit, we're not all government people. In fact, most of us are not civil servants anyway. We do come from a private background. So, why should you use our services? Well, other than that we're really nice people to deal with, I know networking is very, very overworked, but that is really what you tap into when you talk to UKTI. We know a lot of people and we know a lot of stuff. And if we don't know what you're asking, there's a pretty good chance that we can find out from some of our partners the sort of things that you're looking for. And we'll go through in a while, and I'll spend a little bit more time on our services because I think it's really useful for people to have a wider range and a knowledge of exactly what we do and how we can help you. Some of these services you can dip in and dip out. Some are longer term programs where people work, or we work with people over a 12-month period. But you know, the message today is if you do have a request or a question or anything like that that's to do with international trade, please do give us a shout. Okay, we're always going to show something where somebody said something nice about us, clearly. UKTI really opened doors for us, and we knew we were engaging with exactly the right person at each organisation. This question of route to market, I think, is very, very important for people. You know, what is your main route to market? Should you set up in a country? Should you have an agent, a partner? Are you okay to deal with it from the UK? There are various routes to market in various geographical markets, and we're more than happy to discuss this with you and let you discuss this with our people at the embassy as well. I'm going to spend a little bit of time now talking about these services, and I'm sorry to say now this is going to be information overload. As I said, there's a lot of acronyms, you can see them on there, but this really in one slide is going to give an overview of UKTI and all the services that we have. The first two on the slide, Passport to Export and Gateway to Global Growth, these are programs where we work with companies over a 12-month period. There is an element of mentoring from our trade teams. There are workshops to attend. In the case of Gateway to Global Growth, we work very closely with Cranfield. And people who join these programs have access to all these services. The first one, Passport to Export, is for the new to novice exporter. And by that we mean customers who are truly SMEs and who have not more than 25% of their turnover going to the international market. Gateway is for the slightly bigger boys. You really need sort of 2 to 5 years international trade experience and higher turnover. But again, don't get too hung up on the eligibility just for the presentation. You know, talk to us, talk to our trade advisors, and we can guide you accordingly. The next item on the list, Trade Show Access Programme, is a funding availability for companies who wish to exhibit abroad. It's not for visiting an overseas trade show, it's for companies who actually want to exhibit their product or discuss their services abroad at major international exhibitions. Again, we've got a whole list of exhibitions where funding is available, and all that information is available from us. So if you are thinking of going overseas and physically exhibiting, please talk to us. A lot of the funding comes through trade associations, but again, don't think about that too much. Come and talk to us and we can route you accordingly. Export Market Research Scheme, EMRS. It might surprise people to know that if you undertake your own market research abroad and you physically go to a market and do that research to find if there is a market for your product or service, then we can help fund that, in some cases up to 50% of the cost for one market visit. And that's for you doing the research yourself. There is an alternative which we're going to talk about, but the EMRS scheme that we see there, personally, I think it's one of our most underutilised schemes. So if you are capable of doing that research work yourself and you have the time and the wherewithal, we can help fund that for one trip. But, he adds very quickly, it has to be for research purposes. So if you've already got your office over in Shanghai or wherever, you cannot tap into this fund for a quick visit to the office. Sorry. So purely for research purposes only. I also want to add that that doesn't just mean visiting a country. You can undertake research in the UK, and there is a chance that that could be funded as well. But in those cases, we need to talk with you, see what sort of research you're doing, see if there is funding available for that. So again, it doesn't just relate to visiting abroad. It can be for work done, desk research in the UK. OMIS, Overseas Market Introduction Service. It is by far the largest thing we do for companies throughout the UK. OMIS is a service whereby you can tap into the embassies and they actually will undertake the work for you. So, for example, if it was research work that you couldn't or were not able to undertake yourselves, you can stipulate a brief of what work you'd like the embassy to do on your behalf, and the commercial officers in those embassies, or embassies, will undertake the work on your behalf. It's massive, this is. I mean, to have somebody in the country doing the work for you, in the language of the country, understanding the culture of the country, it's very, very, well, it's time-saving for the start, because whilst you're running your company or doing your day job, somebody else is doing that research work for you. But OMIS isn't just about market research. An embassy will do anything you want it to do as long as it's legal. So there's all kinds of people now thinking, oh, what could those lovely people at the embassy do for me? I've just had the British ambassador in Beijing arrange a roast beef dinner for the great and the good in Beijing universities. This was an OMIS report commissioned by the University of Bedfordshire in Luton, where they wanted to go and present themselves to the great and the good in Shanghai. And so this particular event was held at the ambassador's residence. Of course, it waves the flag for the UK, Team GB as I call it, but a very, very strong tool, if you like, for a UK company, large or small, to utilise. In many countries, you can use embassy facilities. I'm not talking about the ambassador's residence, I'm talking about the commercial facilities for presentations. So if you wanted to meet clients or partners at British embassies in many countries, you can use their facilities. And again, it's quite a prestigious thing for a small UK company to be able to invite one of their partners or clients in a country to come to the embassy. You know, come and see us on a bit of British soil. In many countries, this is perhaps stronger than others. So worth considering. What other things can they do? If it was really simple research, you know, how many such and such companies are there in this country that might want to be interested in my product or service, simple things like that, they can do that. But the only restriction on this, by the way, is your mind. So if you ever think of using this service, don't hold back. You know, be as broad as you can in your requirements and your demands. The longer you spend on the brief in advance of commissioning a report like this, the better will be the response. And this is an online service. You're put in contact with the embassy officers that are doing the service for you. There will be people, I'm sure, in the room that have undertaken OMIS reports. Have you done OMIS or not? Yes. And this idea of having somebody in the country, almost an extension of your own company actually, whilst you're doing, or whilst they're doing the work for you, is a very, very attractive proposition. And I call it doing your homework. You know, it would be very unlikely that you'd go to a new market without doing some form of research in the first place. So if you want us to help on that, we can. And just to go back to the scheme before, the Export Market Research Scheme, that's what I call DIY, do it yourself. You do it, and we'll help you financially. On the OMIS scheme, we do that in the country of your choice, or countries in many cases. Export Communications Review. We have a service where a fully trained communications consultant can come to your company and review all aspects of how you portray yourself to the outside world. So they'll look at your website, simple things like business cards, letterheads, your ability or not to speak another language. It's heavily website weighted, I have to say. So somebody can come in and have a look at the website, dismantle it, but positively. For example, if Germany was a target market for you, do you know what you look like in Google DE? So when somebody in Germany puts your words in or your name, where do you come up on Google DE? And it's not just about search engine optimization. This is a thorough review of the internals and externals of your website. You know, think of simple things like, do you have the international dialing code on your phone number? If you're in sandy beds, does somebody in Vietnam really know that's in the UK? There's lots of simple things that you can do. Actually, lots of simple things without going through a review like this, which we can help you with. But for an impartial consultant to come in, spend about 7 or 8 hours in total reviewing your website and looking closely at that, with a view basically of improving what you look like in the international marketplace, is another strong message to send out. As we know nowadays, your website is your shop window to the world. You know, don't let people have a quick look and then go off somewhere else. Let them carry on looking, let them come back to you, give them a hook. Why should they come and look at you? And as I say, heavily website related, or weighted rather, but not purely about websites. And when we talk about communications, I'm going to put my hand up here, I'm old-fashioned. I think the C word, communication, is really important in international trade. And for that is not just, you know, doing stuff like email. I've got something on my desk called email. It'll never catch on, of course, as we all know. It's just a passing fad. But, you know, when you're trading internationally, you will need to go to the country, look your partner or your customer in the eye, you know, get that contract out of them. And it's so important that communication is about face-to-face communication. Yes, of course, it costs money. Yes, it costs you time. But the benefits of making that visit are really, really important for people. Okay, market visit support is the next one on the list. Little pot of money which we can have from time to time to assist people to go to overseas markets. I have to say a lot of these funding streams do change from time to time, so talk to us first and get an update on them. I started by saying that we deal with companies of all sizes. We have an MSB, a mid-sized business team in our region, and I think other regions do the same. So for people that are well up the list, size-wise, we have key trade advisors dealing with mid-sized businesses. Our website is shown. We're on the gov.uk. We weren't on there. I mean, for people that have used UKTI in the past, we used to have the ukti.co.uk. We're now on the gov.uk/UKTI website. Tons and tons of free information, lots of country profiles, how to do business in, all free, gratis and all for nothing. It's there. The second thing on the list there on the right-hand side, business opportunities. Is anybody here aware of the Business Opportunities website? I thought not. Okay, this is a website that you can go on to, where companies in other countries have approached a British embassy or consulate or high commission and have asked for a UK supplier of a product or a service. So it has thousands of opportunities sitting on there now. It's free. You actually don't have to register, but it's better if you do because you can get further access into the site. In fact, to access the full inquiry, you do need to register. But once you go on the website, you can have a look at every opportunity that sits there. There's a search facility on there, so you can put any keywords in there and see just if anything's available for what you guys do. It's free. It'll take you about 5 minutes to register. There's not a whole bunch of information on there. We won't track you down and send you a lot of horrible stuff because we don't do stuff like that. But it certainly is worth having a look anyway. And the worst thing is, if there's nothing on there for you, well, have a look again next week because things get put on there on a daily basis. Definitely worth a look on there. Culture and language support. We have specialist people in addition to the export communication review where we can give you guidance on culture and language. We run in our region a whole series of workshops where you can come along. These are normally free, where you can get, it won't teach you to speak Spanish in a day, don't think that, but there will be some interesting information about why your website pages should or shouldn't be translated. And just a personal view from me, I'm going to take my UKTI hat off for a moment. Don't translate your whole website, not yet anyway. And just general information on culture and language in different countries and the importance of it. I'm fortunate, I'm a linguist, I speak other languages fluently. I've heard people say, oh, I can't export to France, I don't speak French, those French people don't really like us. Well, let's not put those barriers up too early in the conversation. There's lots of help and advice out there as to why you can or can't or should or shouldn't export to certain areas. And if language is the one barrier, certainly things like that are quite easily overcome. Open to Export, another website which is on there, opentoexport.com. It started off really as an export forum, so people could post questions to have a look on there. Again, you need to register. It's worth looking at. There's a whole bunch of information. I have to say, this has been hijacked a little bit by companies now, offering various services. That's not what it was set up to do, but there may be some quite interesting pieces of information that might be relevant to the sort of things that you guys do as well. The last three events and seminars, outward and inward trade missions and export finance. People have heard of trade missions. There's hundreds of trade missions going all over the world, from your region, from our region, from other regions. Again, it's quite a nice thing to do to go on a trade mission in many cases. Also nowadays, I'd be the first to say that it's not necessarily the least expensive way of putting bums on seats when you get on an aircraft. You know, you might be able to do it less expensive if you do it yourself. But there are there's financial help for trade missions as well that are going. So again, all this is on our website under events. So if you're interested in looking at certain countries, and certainly there's a lot coming up for the Brazils, the Chinas, the Indians, the Mexicos of the world, maybe worth having a look, talking to the local trade advisor and really seeing if that's for you. I'm not going to spend too much time on these case studies because a lot of them refer to the services that we've just really talked about. So we're just going to run through these quite quickly. UKTI partners. We partner with a lot of organisations, and the word partner, by the way, is very, very loose here. In many cases, there's not a written agreement. We work with all the banks. We work with various other organisations, various trade associations. When we work with partners, we always say to them, look, it's not your job to sell our services. Please don't do that. So, Mr. Banker, don't go and try and remember what OMIS is or what the Passport to Export programme is. We just want people to be aware that help and advice is available for British companies who want to go into the market internationally, or you may already be in a market and you need to progress more into that market. So when we put various partners up, and there are dozens more than we can see on the screen there, this is just for them to be aware so they can talk to their clients and their members that help and advice is available for British companies. I have a personal view, by the way, about help and advice for British companies. I think we're a little bit reluctant to ask for help very often. I know when I was the MD of a company, it was a very lonely place to be from time to time. There's a view that, you know, we all really should know all of this stuff, and we don't know all of this stuff. And there are people out there who are prepared to help and to give, in many cases, free advice, as much of our advice is. So there are a number of partners there, and as I said, we work with lots of others as well. Okay, there's some just general information there from the point of view of our regional office. There's a generic email address, info@uktie.org.uk, and that's our customer service team, which actually is based in Welwyn Garden City. I've put on there as well the gov.uk/UKTI website as well, and there's a LinkedIn and Twitter page with all social media. So I hope that's been of interest to you, and if it's sort of galvanised anybody into getting in touch with their local trade team or me, and I'll put you in touch with the right people, then please do give us a call. I promise we won't laugh at the silly questions, not whilst you're on the phone anyway. So we've heard them all before. There are a lot of things we don't do as well, you know, documentation, shipping and things like that, but we can always route you to the people who can help you with things like that. So again, the message, I guess, today, at the end of today is, you know, please ask. Help is at hand, and we'd be more than happy to assist you where we can, because the whole idea of the organisation is to grow UK PLC internationally. And obviously some people in the room do that quite successfully, as we've heard, but others may have their appetite whetted and want to know how they can take that not too scary step into export. So thank you very much.